Hi guys, welcome to a new edition of Queen's Court. We have got a very special guest joining
Very
us this
special
evening.
indeed.
Would you like to introduce
No, I'll
yourself?
let you do that because you always do the introductions.
Okay. We are joined by former Chaos co-owner Dave Mercy.
Dave Youell,
whatever
Dave
he wants to be
Jonathan,
called.
Sir. We always call him Sir. All the Chaos fans call him
I've
Sir.
got many names.
Yeah.
We just so we come up with some of the repeatable ones. So how's
Hello,
lockdown
guys, how
been
you
treating
doing?
you though, Dave, since March?
Groundhog Day. Every day feels the same because I've been working throughout the whole period, but working from home pretty much throughout the whole time. So yeah, I don't know, one of the lucky ones because I've not really been that affected. So kind of dull and boring, to be perfectly honest with you. But it's in terms of everything with my life, it's probably been nice because it's been a nice break from from what my life ironically was like, very chaotic up until the point we sold Chaos. So I've really kind of just enjoyed just doing my job and then being able to switch off in the evenings. So it's actually been quite nice. So yeah, that side of stuff's been all right for me.
But the world's actually gone to shit since you sold Chaos. We've had this global pandemic, and then we've had speaking out. That's just two things I can remember, and it's all since you sold us. I'm blaming you for all this.
Yeah, I've spoken to Nick and Rob about this a few times, saying if we couldn't have picked a better time to sell, I think, in retrospect, considering what was coming up. So not that we had any idea. We should have known, because I think Bristol had one of the worst storms in about 10 or 20 years or something.
Yeah.
The weekend of, yeah. So there was clearly something in the air when we were on the way out. But yeah, I don't think we could have foreseen a worldwide pandemic. I'm not taking the heat for that one.
You weren't getting messages from a lab in Wuhan or nothing then before you sold, saying so now.
No, not guilty. Not taking that.
Or your Huawei phone or something like that, telling you. Translated from Chinese. Yeah. Yeah, never mind.
So what first got you into wrestling?
What first got me into wrestling was... So I'm trying to remember how old I am. So I think the first time I was aware of wrestling was when WrestleMania 6 was happening, or at least when it came out on VHS. And back then, that could have been like nine months after it happened.
Yeah.
But I remember the double edition. It was double tape of WrestleMania 6, and I was given that by one of my mates, and I watched that. I remember watching that religiously and like worn it down until I had to give it back to him. So. First match I ever watched was Coco Beware versus Rick Martel, and thinking back, I mean, it's probably now, nobody would remember that match now. It wasn't like it was a classic match, but it did such good scene setting because Rick cheated as soon as the match started. Coco came out with Frankie in the big vibrant colors. It was clear who the heels and faces were, and straight away I was sort of sitting down watching this, going, right, I get this. I clearly know who the good and bad guys are. I'm fully on board with this, and this is around sort of that Hulkamania time, or to the tail end of that first Hulkamania sort of run. And I just remember it was obviously before the Attitude Era boom, but there was definitely a early 90s, late 80s boom period, which wasn't as big in the UK, but it was big enough that if you were sort of anywhere between the ages of sort of 6 and 10, you knew about wrestling because of Hulk Hogan. So I was hooked from the very first match, and as soon as that happened, I wanted to get my hands on whatever I could. So I used to rent any VHS tape I could get of any pay-per-view. I would get when we got Sky and I could finally watch Raw, and those early editions of Raw back when it was in the Manhattan Center, and I would stay up way past my bedtime, go downstairs, get in a lot of trouble, just so I could keep up to date with what was happening on Raw each week. So I remember the lead up, the first WrestleMania I actually got to watch properly was the lead up to WrestleMania 9, but in retrospect, that was probably one of the worst WrestleManias of all time. So by the time I really got into it, we kind of hit the first real sort of down period. But that's really my childhood, remembering sort of WrestleMania 9 and watching, frankly, looking back, some fairly rotten wrestling. But I was attracted to the characters. I was attracted to the storylines. I had no idea what a 5-star match was. All I knew is that whatever I was watching. So, you know, Bret Hart being the champion and losing the Yokozuna, but then Hogan winning that belt that night at WrestleMania 9, I thought was great.
Yeah.
Looking back now and know the politics of it, not so much. But at the time, it was amazing. You know, it was the whole pageantry and the larger than life characters that brought me in, which I think bring in a lot of young fans when they start watching it, because they don't know what good and bad matches are. They just know what the characters are, or they'll remember certain moments or actions that bring you into things. So that's a long-winded way of me saying it's because a mate lent me a tape. That's what got me into wrestling.
No, fair enough. I mean, I think wrestling is better if you don't know the politics of stuff and all that, you know, when you're innocent, basically. And I think Twitter these days, it was enough of it, didn't it? You know, and all the social media.
Yeah, but I mean, that's not just with wrestling. I think that's with everything, like with the movie industry now. If you look at finding out who signed on to do such and such a film, or what's happened with this director, and then that casting's been replaced for this film, and all, you'd never hear about that. Like when I was growing up, all you just knew is that, oh, there's an action film out, great, I'm going to go watch an action film and just take it on face value. You don't think about all the layers behind it, and it's a byproduct of becoming obsessed with something. Because when you become obsessed with something, of whatever that art medium is, or whatever it is you want to watch, you want to find out everything about it. And we're in an information age now when it's really easy to do that, which has got, you know, positives and negatives. And, you know, I try to generally be a more positive person when it comes to most of these things with wrestling. And, you know, there's things I don't enjoy in wrestling, so I just choose not to watch it or not comment on it, and just try to focus on the stuff I do really enjoy. You know, AEW had a fantastic episode of television last night. I thought it was brilliant. You know, everything that happened now. I'm not going to give any spoilers in case anybody hasn't watched it yet.
This won't be going out for another week or so yet, so you're all right.
Fine. That's fine. But, you know, I try to focus on, right, what is it I enjoy? And that's, you know, within wrestling or outside of wrestling. And, you know, it's easy for me to say it, but if more people focused on that and then just ignored the stuff they hated, I think the world would be a better place. But I don't think we're actually going to be able to change that world on this podcast today.
No. So what made the transition for you from actually just watching wrestling to actually wanting to be a wrestler? And where did you start training and all that?
I think I wanted to be a wrestler after I watched that first match with Coco Beware and Rick Martel. But I think it would have been probably 98, 99 when I first started getting involved in training. So this was right on the cusp of that big Attitude Era boom, and it was through friends of friends. So really good mate of mine had a mate who was a referee, who's called the Pox, who used to referee for CSF Wrestling, as I'm sure you guys know CSF. And they had a couple of wrestlers that lived around my way, and they happened to be Gideon and Jekyll. So Jekyll, Rob, actually for a very long time just lived on the same street as me, and so did Alex Steele. So at one point, like, there was three of us that lived within 100 meters of each other. And I got told by Pox that these guys were running a training school, and really what I mean by training school is, it wasn't in the same way it is now, where people are running schools that are much more professionally run than this was. Not to say it wasn't being done professionally, but it was a different time, I think is the best way to say it. So it wasn't being advertised as a school. It was just a place where wrestlers such as Gideon and Jekyll could get some mats and roll around, really, and just try things out. We didn't have a ring. So I showed up and got stretched 6 ways from Sunday by the pair of them, and kept coming back because I was addicted to it. Hurt like hell, but they showed me the basics, so everything you can learn without being in a ring. And I actually got onto my first show without having stepped in a wrestling ring, which was crazy, really, thinking back. The access to get involved with schools now is so much easier. The problem is there's a lot more trainees, so it's harder to get on shows. So it's that catch-22. We had less shows but less trainees back then. So after about a year and a half of working with Nick and Robert training, who were still doing shows for CSF, Stuart Nat at the time wanted Jekyll to have like a group of cohorts with him. So he was at the time known as Jake Jekyll, and he had face paint. So they wanted to have a couple of goths basically to be like a little stable for him, effectively the guys that would take hideous bumps for on his behalf. So that is effectively what happened. So my debut was it was Gideon versus Jekyll, I think it was. I'll probably get that wrong and they'll correct me, I'm sure. And myself, Alex Steele, and another gentleman called JJ Moore, who doesn't wrestle anymore, all came out as goths. We got the tar beaten out of us and then got brought to the back. That was my introduction into wrestling, and from that point I just sort of stuck around. I just did whatever I could to help Stuart and anything with CSF, just frankly because I love wrestling, and B, I knew it would help get me a spot, and it did, and it kind of just sort of grew from there. So it's not I can't see any situation where anybody in today's society in wrestling would be able to get into a show that way. Luckily nowadays the schools, the training, the expectations of a student from wrestling are far higher than they were in sort of the early 2000s, because British wrestling looked completely different to the way it does right now.
Yeah, because we know of well, we've been to like Dragon Pro and Reach Wrestling, and both have got really good training schools. I mean, Dragon Pro's probably obviously closer to you, so
yeah.
What do you think of them?
I mean, I've got good relationships with all the guys. I mean, I'd say that the Dragon Pro school, for my money, is one of the best, if not the best, wrestling school in the country, and that's purely based on, if you look at the talent that's produced. Anybody that's listening to this that wants to consider a school should base that on who's doing the training and who's come out of that school. And when you look at Dragon Pro and you look at Mark Andrews, you look at Flash Morgan Webster, obviously, while Ball does the training. You look at some of the recent guys that are starting to get out there. So you got your Danny Joneses, your Brendan Whites, and Los Federales. There's been so many. I mean, and I could probably list off, if I really thought about it, 30 people that the Dragon Pro produced. Plus the fact that they're, and I have this conversation with Ball quite often, is that for a very long time he still considered the shows he was doing trainee shows, and I was like, mate, they're not trainee shows anymore. Like you're getting over 300 to 400 people in a really nice looking venue.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, I'm so jealous of that venue. So jealous. I remember when I came to the first one, I looked around, going, why haven't we got something like this in Bristol? This is amazing. The quality of the fact that 90% of that roster have all been trainees directly through that school, and that speaks volumes for the way that training works. I speak to Grayson loads. I will confess I haven't been down to Reach, and that's one of the things that I was looking forward to about when I stopped running with Chaos. I can actually go out and watch shows again, because I can't remember the last time I went to a show. Because I
remember us talking about it, and you said, "Oh, Bank Holiday Weekend show," if I remember rightly. And you were thinking about coming down for the Bank Holiday Weekend.
No, exactly. Because the thing is, it's like I'm going to use the word mental, and I don't mean to do it this way, but Grayson, I've had a relationship with Grayson where he's always asking me questions about what we did with Chaos when we were starting up, and I must admit I didn't really know Grayson before he started talking to me, but we've sort of developed a relationship now where, I mean, it's more of an online relationship. I've seen him a few times, but I can see when I talk to him, his passion and everything he's doing down there really reminds me of the way that we went and the way that we did go, and I can see what he's done, and I'm so pleased that he's managed to get that unit, because it's worked out really well for him now that he's been able to continue doing the shows online, and because he's developed that school, he's got all that talent locally ready to go. So whether it was planned or not makes no difference, but he's been able to work on, he's one of the few companies in the UK right now that's actually been able to put out viable shows, and it's one of the things about the whole Southwest scene where I don't feel like we get a lot of credit in our little pocket of the UK, because we're not that built up an area, and we're difficult for other parts of the UK to get to. But I know we've got really good talent around here. I know that we've got really good shows, and I know that guys like you know that they're really good shows. So it's always one of those, we're like a really badly kept secret as far as I see it, where everyone down here knows about it, but if you go anywhere outside of our area that isn't aware of a Southwest scene, they won't know necessarily Chaos or a Dragon Pro or Reach. But it blows my mind when I compare those shows to some of the other shows that do get buzz in other places based on their location, perhaps more than the quality of their shows, get more buzz than we do. But it's a constant bugbear of mine. I often feel like a lot of people around our way don't get the credit they deserve.
No, I think you're spot on there. I think now the Southwest wrestlers before the pandemic, they were starting to break out. Your Eddie Ryans, your Dick Rileys, like you say, your Danny Joneses.
Yeah,
I mean, all three of them are great.
Yeah, I mean, Dick Riley is normally top of my list whenever I speak to any promoter that ever said, "If you recommend me any talent," and before they finish that sentence, I'm like, Dick Riley.
Yeah.
I mean, I love that guy anyway. He's, when I stopped wrestling, and I kind of knew this was going to happen, but there's people you speak to on a regular basis because there's a employee-employer relationship there, and I understand that. Dick's one of the few guys that I've kept that relationship with, regardless of the wrestling. So I'm still tight with him. We're already we're going abroad together next year. So he's one of the guys that really does. He deserves all the success in the world because
Absolutely.
the guy he doesn't know how to have bad matches, and he's got that charisma factor. That's the thing. Like we booked him to lose for a year, and he was voted our wrestler of the year. That isn't normal, but that's what happened because that's the quality of the output he can give. So yeah, no, absolutely, we've got really good talent around it and really good promotions that I've often felt need more exposure than they get at the moment.
So when the walkout happened, and I forget where it was now. That's and we all walked out.
Hannum, yeah.
Hannum, that's it. Did you expect as many people to walk out as they did, or were you worried it might not happen? Or
yeah, I was worried. It was one of the I had this idea in my head for ages about the visual of how all this could look, and I really wanted it to happen. I mean, the way it happened couldn't have gone any better.
No,
it really couldn't. But when we think about our booking, we sort of planned it. We sketched out. This is the point where we know Dick's going to lose his job, but we knew that he was still going to come back and be around. So we needed to get to a point where there was almost a fever pitch where he came back 2 or 3 times after he got fired. Because we basically said to him, look, we want you to be Austin for a bit. We want you to be coming out from the crowd, get the crowd, the crowd were already on his side anyway. But we want it to be to the point where, luckily, Eddie Dennis is a fantastic heel. I mean, he's one of the best talkers in the UK, so he's easy to hate. So, when you break it down, you say, right, we're going to take one of the most over faces we've got, and then you take one of the most over heels, and that face is going to ask the crowd to do something to piss off the heel. It was probably going to work, but we didn't have a plan B. So I'm really pleased that worked out because the visual of it was great. And it's something I haven't seen done at another show before, and and that really speaks volumes for the way that I always felt. I mean, I'm going to say this anyway because Chaos was obviously very personal to me, but it felt different to me to any other show that I was involved with because it didn't feel like we were performing to you guys. It felt like we were performing with you. And when we gave you guys, and we've done other things like this before, but when we give the audience a chance to perform with us and come along for that, hopefully then you're more invested with whatever story or whatever angle or whatever thing we were trying to do. And that I think was just a great example of, we took a gamble with that, but it paid off, and it's one of my favorite memories.
Yeah. I tell you what, it is one of mine as well. And what sticks in my mind, you said about Eddie Dennis, was when he's there shouting at the crowd, said, "What are you doing leaving? You're wearing my t-shirt, sit down." He's brilliant though, wouldn't he, when he's on the mic?
Yeah, I think he really enjoyed that last run because he knows he's got a lot of freedom with us because we don't script promos, we don't tell people what to say or what to do. We trust the people that we give those opportunities to, and we know that people will be more will come across more natural if they're saying the words that they want to say. And also, I'm not a good writer, so I know that if I'm dealing with people, we're always in the basis of, I wasn't the greatest wrestler in the world, so why would I tell people how to wrestle? I wasn't the greatest promo in the world, so why would I tell someone how to do a promo? I'm going to get people that were much better at doing the things that I wasn't good at and say, that thing you're really good at, can you go out and do that for me, please? Cheers. Yeah. And you just give them broad strokes to say, right, this is the direction we need to go, and then you collaborate with them. So a lot of the ideas that we would get wouldn't just be us telling somebody this is what you're doing tonight. It would be more around us saying, right, this is not just what you're doing tonight, but this is what you're doing in 6 months. What do you think? And they would then say how we would say this is the pitch, and then they come back with what if we do this and we could change this and do that. And by the time you get to that point, it's no longer our idea, it's everyone's idea. But I know from a talent perspective, because I've been on the other side of that, that you're much more invested in whatever it is you're doing. Because the amount of times I've rocked up to a show to say, what am I doing tonight? Wrestling that guy 20 minutes, no story, go home. Fine, okay, if that's what you want, that's fine. I'll go out and I'll wrestle that match to the best of my ability, but you're not going to get that extra 5%. You're not going to get that reinvestment, because I know that I'm just there for that night. I'm just there to do that one thing for that night.
Mm.
Most of the guys on our show that we booked on a regular basis knew that whatever they were doing that night was not the beginning or the end of what it was they were doing. They knew what they were going to.
Yeah.
And that's the way that we like booking. So it was cyclical. It worked on loads of different directions as a result. And it was kind of just the perfect blend of chaos when it all happened. It wasn't part of the plan. It just kind of, that's the way things ended up.
That was one of my favorite shows, I think, Dave, that was. And can you answer a quick urban myth? Did you or the council get complaints about 80 people outside or 100 people chanting "We want Dick"?
No, we didn't actually. No, I'm afraid not. I must admit, like, Hannam is a wonderful venue. Like, they've been so good to us. Like, it's that was the second venue we ever booked, and like, we ended up using it less and less purely on the basis of we filled it too quickly. And we kind of had that, you know, there's been more than one time we've run that and not made any money. We've just broke even on the show just because we know what that venue's like. So some of our biggest moments have probably happened in Hannam, like when Flash Morgan Webster came back after a year off, like that happened in Hannam, and that was electric. When Bino beat Haskins in an Ironman match, that happened in Hannam. Obviously that walkout, and then that show with the walkout was probably the most closest night we've done, which was kind of the way that I kind of felt like Raw used to be. Like, in terms of, you had a big angle at the start of the night, you knew you were building up to a big match then at the end of the night that you didn't know was going to happen at the start, because Dick Riley might get his job back. And then at the end of that, then Mike Berg comes out with the briefcase. So it's that, and then sets the main event for our big show. You know, that so that the only thing was missing was people pointing at the sign. You know, that was that whole night was kind of, that was, and obviously there's other things that happened that night as well. But
wasn't that when Christie came back as well?
Yes, no, exactly. Sorry, how did I forget that? Yeah,
that got a big cheer, didn't it?
Yeah,
when,
exactly.
When James Drake got thrown to the door, then all of a sudden he got thrown back out. It was Grizzly that threw him out.
The Colton moment, sorry, not the Jazzy Jeff moment from Fresh Prince. That's what it was. It was like Big Phil throwing Jazzy Jeff back out. That's exactly the visual we wanted. So if you watch it on camera, I actually told the cameraman, this is the exact shot. I don't normally do this for cameramen, but I said, this is happening. That's the exact shot I want. The side pit from the door and somebody just coming out going, ah! You know, that's very, very important. I forgot about that. So, like, we started hot, we finished even hotter, and by the end of that night, people had a reason to hopefully want to spend money with us on our big show that year. And that, to me, was the best example of one of those shows we did. Yeah,
because you had an amazing match. Was it Danny Luna against Shats?
Oh, was that the crazy one where they just beat
the tar into the chairs and everything, didn't they?
Yeah, I mean, and this is the kind of thing where, going back to what I was saying earlier, we never asked them. We never ask people to go out and try to hurt yourselves or each other. That's obviously not our aim. But not that there's a sort of top that mentality with the way that Chaos was, but everybody wanted to get the absolute maximum out of the crowd. So they would go out and they would do things there that they might not do in other companies, again, because they know where these stories are going. And, you know, I'm so pleased to see Danny Luna get signed. I mean, she's another one who she was wrestling for a while, but then got seasoned, if you will, through Dragon Pro. And between the point she started at Dragon Pro to the point she got signed, I think it was only like 18 months or something. It was a crazy short period of time. Yeah, and she's obviously great as well.
Oh yeah, I mean, she's so strong as well, isn't she? Yeah.
Oh god, yeah. No, absolutely.
Probably one of the strongest women I've seen.
And that's the. And she doesn't. The thing I like about Danny is she doesn't look like she doesn't look like a normal British women's wrestler, if you know what I mean, in terms of she's a bit stockier. I always say she's almost like female Pete Dunne in terms of she's got that sort of stance about her, if you know what I mean. I'm trying to put this in the best way so I don't sound like I'm disregarding anyone else, but I like different. I like doing different things with different people with Chaos than you would do with other people in different places. So, and we've, like Flash's original heel run, he wasn't heel anywhere else at that point. When we brought Boar in, we used him as a face. Nobody at that point was using him as a face anywhere. It was one of those where, okay, we know they're in the scene, we know they're around our area, but let's do something different with them. So at least if they come and see the performance at our show, they know they're going to see a different version of them that hopefully they're not going to see anywhere else.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the approach that we tried to take.
Because my first Chaos show was the Made in a Chaos show at Hannam as well, and that was something that hadn't been done for a long time, or I'd not seen in the Southwest before, and it was amazing, brilliant.
Great. Sorry, you broke up a bit there, so I didn't hear the first part of the question.
Oh,
sorry.
My first Chaos show was the Made in a Chaos show, the double show, one in the afternoon, one in the evening.
Oh wow!
Oh,
that was your first one.
In the Southwest
Okay.
before, hadn't it?
No, it hadn't. I mean, that was. I mean, Nick and Rob hated me for that because I always wanted to do double shows and I always wanted to do a tournament. And we ended up. I mean, because you can do a double show, you end up with a bigger budget. So without wishing to go into the details of the business, but obviously, if you can use one venue and you've only got one ring hire cost, you can do other things with the show then as a result. And that's how we ended up with a 200-seater that had some of the best women wrestlers in the UK, plus Keith Lee, plus Pete Dunne on a show in front of 200 people.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a hell of a show. That was.
Was it Keith Lee against Big Grizzly as well, wasn't it? That was one of the matches. It was,
yeah.
That was probably the best heavyweight match I've ever seen, Dave. I think I've said that before, and fantastic.
Yeah, and I think it was one of those sort of situations where Keith Lee had an indie name, but not necessarily everybody on that night knew who Keith Lee was going in. Definitely knew who he was going out. Because that obviously he's done okay for himself since then. He's
not done too bad.
Landed on his feet.
I think being at Chaos was the peak of his career, to be fair.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. Yeah, now he's just on the wind down.
It's all downhill now, isn't it? But but yeah, no, that was a fantastic show all around, wasn't it? To be fair.
So, what was it that made you want to become a promoter, going from wrestling to actually putting on your own shows?
Partly frustration, because I was working for a lot of those sort of companies where you show up, you do your match, you leave, and I'm a creative person. I like to get more than I always push more in everything. I'm terrible for that, but I was always trying to push these promoters when I was doing these matches. Say, but could we do this? Could we do this? Could we try to build this in, or do get an angle going, or give people a reason to come back? And that wasn't what those companies I was working for wanted to do. And I was like, okay, that's fine. And I think after me, Nick and Rob we spent time in cars. We went to a lot of the same shows, and we would have the same conversations when we were driving back going, it was good, but imagine if they had done this, or it was, or why didn't they think about doing this? And why are we only running this venue this many times when we got all these other local ones? Because we were working, I'll just say it was when I was working for CSF, where what Natty would do is he would run Melksham, run Thatcham, and like one other venue, and but they were so spread apart, or Western, so it was all down that M4 corridor, but they were so spread apart that there was no reason, like realistically you're talking about a 75 mile radius, so the chances of somebody traveling to those shows is slim. So I understand why you didn't want to do angles, and I get that. But we were always trying to think, well, if you're in Western, you could do Melksham, or you could do like a little area that you try to run where people can travel between those shows. You can still promote the towns in their own right, but then by doing that, you can build up a community. You can build up a larger fan base, and hopefully, if you put a product out people want, they'll come to all the shows. But if they don't, if they're their own right. And he wasn't interested in that, and that's fine. And he draws really well. His shows are very professional. That's no slight on him. It's just a different way of doing wrestling. And after moaning in the cars for years, and on Rob's 30th birthday, all of us got absolutely smashed, and we just said, sod it, why not? let's just do it ourselves. We knew Yate inside and out. We know Yate's a really big commuter town. It's got 40,000 houses, so it's a pretty big town in its own right. And I'd already helped Stuart promote some shows in Yate a few years before, and they drew really well. And so I already knew how to do aspects of promoting. Certainly didn't know as much as I do now, but I knew enough that I thought we could sell out a small venue. So we all put in £100 with the basis of that's enough to get started. That's enough to we begged, borrowed, and stole. So Dragon Pro gave us our entrance on our musics that night. We were able to basically lift a load of their talent. So we used a lot of their guys on the first night. It was in Shireway Community Centre. So if anything, that last, were you guys at the last show? The very last one?
I had to miss the last one on Sunday because Kirsty was working.
Right.
Yeah. We were at the second last one at the Big Leisure Centre, but
yeah. So I mean, the last time we went, we put no production into it. The first time we put more production into it than we did on the Sunday show, but we set up whatever little lighting we could just to make it look okay for a show. And the idea was, if we can break even, we've at least proven we can do it. And we were something like 10 off a sellout, I think, for that first show, and it was a really good show. Everybody seemed really happy. So then it was, let's run this again. So we did like an angle on the night. We didn't do any more than that. So I think Gideon and Jekyll opened the show, and then they closed the show with the Hunt Bro. But we were building angles just for that first show, and then 3 months later we ran the same venue again and sold it out, and then we ran it again and we sold it out, and then we found out about Hannam, and we sold that out. And then we started to think maybe we're onto something here. And it wasn't through any sort of master plan of marketing or thinking that if we do it this way, we will build it and they will come. It was very much on a slowly catchy monkey kind of basis, where we just expanded slowly with it. We didn't want to try to start off with a venue we couldn't fill, or start off with a tournament for a belt that may only last one night. We started off very simply to say, this is a wrestling show. Hopefully you'll want to come see it, and then hopefully you come back to it. And that was pretty much it. And then it turned into obsession for the next 6.5 years of my life.
So when it started off, did you feel much pressure about making it succeed, or did you just see how it goes?
I think the only pressure we had was on ourselves for the quality we wanted to achieve, but that was it. It wasn't a case where, to be perfectly honest, if only 20 people had showed up, but the show was still that quality, and I never ran another show again, I would have been proud of that show. Looking back at it now, I hate that show. Because there's so many production things that we didn't do right, and there's so many little things that we could have done better. But the only pressure I feel that we put on is on ourselves, but not through anyone else, but just the fact that we want whatever we do to be the best it can. That's really where I sort of feel the pressure, because I know if it's the best it can be based on my view of what we want to achieve, my hope would then be that anybody that's paid money to see it is satisfied. And maybe not just on that one night, because I know that we've had some clangers of shows that people haven't enjoyed, and I'm fine with that. But I know that that's then led to the overall outcome of what we wanted to achieve at the end of it. And I very much see what we did more like the Marvel Cinematic Universe in terms of everything's a film. And it's basically just been sort of getting to that whole culmination piece. Yeah. And the pressure I put on myself is just making sure that we are maximizing anything we can do for that one period that we're focusing on. And I put more and more pressure on myself, but I do that internally. That's just my own personal mindset. And that's through no one else's fault but myself. And that's only because I'm a megalomaniac and an egotistical bastard when I'm very difficult to work with.
Well,
I've fallen out with Nick and Rob many times.
I'll feed your ego a bit now, Dave. Ever since that Hannam show, I've never seen a bad couch show. So you sent me away happy every single time.
Well, I mean, and the reason I say bad show is because I know, and I would say like the Chaos Father was not our best show. That was the one that we did in a new venue, the other side of Bristol. We were promised we could get a booze license, and then 10 days that booze license was revoked. So naturally, we had lots of sober, angry people in the crowd.
I didn't
And
go
then
to
that
one, so
night, yeah, all right, okay. But it was purposely done as a downer show. So that's the night that Dick Riley got fired. James Drake came back and cashed in the belt. So people left pissed off.
yeah.
But that's kind of what we wanted, because we wanted people to be mad that Dick had gone, because Grizz had gone to the show before. So people, and we stuck to that. So people have assumed that this was like, okay, like we've kept to that promise. So then when Dick went, people were like, what the hell are you doing? Getting rid of your most over guys. But we knew what we were doing, and they had to go so people could miss them. And we knew what we were going with that, and we just had to bite our tongues, because at the end of this, you're going to really, really like where we're going with this. I know tonight wasn't great. Just trust us on it. But yeah, it's that to me, not from a pressure standpoint, is probably one of my. That show was a bigger disappointment to me than anything else we've done, just because nobody likes getting negative feedback. I don't care who you are. You could have 100 nice things said about you, but if one person says one bad thing, you focus on that one bad thing. And that eats away at you, and it eats away at you, and you focus more on that one person than you do the 100 that loved it. And that's probably where my pressure is. Going back to what you said, my pressure is I want 101 people to be happy. I don't want one person not to be happy.
So I suppose using a football analogy, it's like if you lose a game of football, you just can't wait for the next game to make it right again.
Exactly. Yeah. No, that is it. But then, from a football fan's perspective, there's still going to be people online that are absolutely rinsing the manager if you've lost that one game.
Oh yeah.
No matter what happens, or even if you win that game, it's like you didn't use the right formation, or that sub was at the wrong time. You got lucky. Yeah. You got lucky. It was only 4-0. That sort of thing.
Yeah.
But you learn to start to slowly ignore those messages and focus on the fact of, like, we've just sold out another show. Everyone else seemed happy. People that don't like it are still coming back, so I should probably be okay with that. But you still want everyone to enjoy the experience that you try to get.
It's about personal pride as well, isn't it? You put it on your product and quality control, isn't it, really?
Yeah, no, it is. It definitely is, because I said this is an obsession, or what was an obsession for me. I was doing a full-time job, and then I was easily putting in at least another part-time job's worth of hours in running Chaos, at least, because at one point I was editing all the shows, doing all the graphics, doing all the social media, sorting out anything else we did. So, sorting out all the tab stuff. And that's purely because I'm terrible at delegating. It's not because nobody wanted to help me. It's just that I'm a control freak. So that's not through anyone else's fault. It's just that that's the way I prefer to run things. I know it's done if I do it, but I also know that I might get to see my kids a little bit over the weekend as a result of it. But that's the pressure that I put on myself.
How do you cope balancing work, chaos, family?
I didn't is the answer, and that's one of the reasons I had to end up stopping. I cannot remember a day or an hour I didn't think about Chaos. No, when I was proper deep into it, sort of when we started to get the proper monthly shows, it was I'd wake up, I'd check my phone, and I'd look for wrestling. Like the first thing I do. Last thing I do at night, you're checking for wrestling. And it's not just what you're doing, you're checking what everyone else in wrestling is doing, you're checking what the other promotions are doing, you look at, it becomes an obsession. So I'd still go out and do things with the kids, and like if I'm there taking them to football, I'd be like, yeah, watching the football game, I'm still checking my phone, trying to see what's going on. Like I was not in a good place with that. I did not balance it, is the answer. So I ended up with less sleep and just doing more work. And thankfully, my wife was very understanding, because she understood this was a passion for me and something that I really wanted to do. So she would set aside time for me where she could tell I had too much on. So she would basically lock me away in rooms for hours, and
for a lot
leave
of
me alone when she knew I had loads of work to go through.
Yeah, a lot of people, Lynn is the first actual face they see as they're walking into the shows. So she's almost the face of Chaos in some ways.
No, she's a real boss. Yeah, I mean, luckily, I mean, she doesn't give herself enough credit with it, because like she's just, her and Emma, just as responsible for the success we had as anyone else. And doing that front of house job, I mean, they work really hard to make sure, because they obviously for regulars that come every time, they would know. So I would sort out the reservations the night before for the seat reservations, and they were so on it, those two, that they come around the night before and they put them in the right order because they knew who liked sitting next to each other. You know, that's the level of care that they would put into these sort of things. And that's the stuff that a load of you guys don't see, obviously, but there's a lot of stuff that we would try to do in the background to go that extra mile to give people the invest in us as much back as we can give back to them, to show that we appreciate them. So if anyone ever bought priority seating and had requests, we do whatever we can for them. And even the ones that didn't, like, you know, Lynn and Emma know more about our fans than I do. You know, I obviously know you guys, and I know if I'm wandering around through the crowd during the show, I'll get like a "Hey Dave," I'm like, "Hey, how you doing?" Lynn will know the names of people's kids. I was like, I wouldn't have a clue. But yeah, Lynn knows the probably more about our fan base than anyone else, I'd say.
So when Chaos was starting out, ultimately, did you expect it to be the success that it was?
It's certainly what I wanted. Did I expect that? No. Did I want more from it? Yeah, because I always wanted more. I think success is subjective. Mentioned before that I was really happy and proud about what we did. I always try to imagine Chaos as if it was in a league table of British wrestling shows, and I felt that we weren't deemed on the UK basis as being a top 10 company, and that was always sort of my goal. I wanted to be in the same conversations of when people talk about ICW Progress and they start talking about different areas. So you talk about, say, Birmingham, you talk about Kamikaze, or you talk about Norwich and they say WAW, and if anyone says Bristol, they say Chaos. And that's what I wanted, but we never got to that. That's what I wanted. But that's purely on the basis of that's the way that the internet works and the fact that we don't have a built-up area. But I absolutely believe that within reason, we did everything we could to try to achieve that goal and to try to get to that point. I think there was a couple of things that didn't work in our favor. I think the first is that we allowed families in, so we were deemed to be a family show. And I always just said, we're not a family show. We're just not family unfriendly. We just won't swear or have blood. But that's literally it. It's what I say, sort of. If you're a fan when you're a kid, if you were me, if you were a fan when you were younger, you grew up loving it, and you've now got a child that you want to go to a show to that you can enjoy, but your kid can enjoy, that's what we do. That's very difficult to market, though. You can't say that very quickly. And the other thing that I think was the fact that we ran leisure centres. So our bigger shows, there's some people that just hate leisure centres and just then brandish you with a mark of not being that next tier because you run leisure centres. But now I always felt that we invested as much as we could do to try to make that feel like it was not a leisure centre show. But as a result of that, we weren't in those, or that my view is we weren't in those conversations because of that. I wanted us to go even further. Like, I wanted us to run the Colston Hall. I wanted us to run bigger venues. I felt we had the potential and the momentum at a point to do that. I think that momentum probably peaked at the point that WWE came in and started to take the talent exclusively, and there's no bitter feelings towards that. I got nothing but love for anyone that signed up there. But it felt like that year, or at least the year before in that year, which would have been what, 2-3 years ago now, really felt like we were onto something and we were building momentum, and we could have done it then. But going back to what I said, I'm happy with everything we did. I'm always going to want more. So I didn't achieve everything that I ultimately wanted to achieve when we stopped, but I definitely over-delivered on everything we thought we were going to do when I started.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. But was it Colston Hall that actually wouldn't have wrestling their venue?
Yeah. So they used to have All Star, so Brian Dixon there, and I have no idea of the history. 10 times. Begged, borrowed, and stealed. Which had the phone put down on me a few times. They just flat out didn't want wrestling there, and some venues it has a stigma, which is a shame, because I was trying to explain to them. I sent them any promotional material that we had to say, look, forget what you think you know about wrestling. The world of British wrestling is a different proposition now than it was 10 years ago. Please, I just want to meet and let me talk to you. It just didn't happen, unfortunately, and it's a shame because I think if you can run somewhere like the Colston Hall, that has as much more pull in it than just the Chaos brand name. I think we probably would have got a few hundred people just by the fact that wrestling was back at Colston Hall. We would have got enough coverage from that, because I genuinely feel like we could have got over 1,000 people if we were running there. But it just wasn't to be, and it's like I said, it was one of those things I would have loved to have happened, but I don't regret it didn't happen. It's something I would have liked to happen, but very happy with everything we did do.
So you've obviously booked probably hundreds and hundreds of wrestlers as Chaos, one of the Chaos promoters. Have you had any real proper busts up with any of them?
Bust ups.
Ever come away with a black eye or anything, or you know?
No, me and Paul Robinson nearly came to blows towards the end over something stupid, and that was one of the most scariest moments of my life. But no, more than yelling. So, because God knows if it ended up hand to hand, he would have killed me.
He's a scary guy, isn't he?
There's been, oh God, yeah. I mean, what you guys don't see is the before he goes out, like before his music's playing, he proper gets in his own. Like, you can't talk to him. Like, it is an act, but it's not an act. Okay, just trust me on this. Who else have I had arguments with? There's been times where we've gone out and asked people to do things and they haven't done things the way we wanted. So I've had to add stern words with people, but nothing too bad. I'd like to think that generally speaking, we were always pretty easygoing. So to be frank, people normally wanted to have jobs to come back to. So you don't tend to find that you have many serious bust ups in a locker room unless there's a serious problem. And I think with Robertson didn't turn out to be a serious problem. It was just miscommunication. But that is just one example. I mean, I've probably had more arguments with Webster than I've had anyone else. When he's been backstage and he's watching it with me, and he's watching something happen like out on the monitor. I'd be like, and he'd be saying, "Why is that happening?" And I'd say, "It's happening because of this." I go, "Why are you doing it that way?" And I'd be like, "Because I want to do it that way. It's my company. We're going to do this, this, and this." So, no, you should do this, this, and this. And I'm going, "It's out there now. I can't stop it." And then we'd yell at each other, but in a passionate way. I probably had more arguments with him outside of Nick and Rob than I did anyone else. But that's only because he was passionate about Chaos and wanted it to be as good as it could be.
But going back to Paul Robinson, that entrance every time when you're the security guards around him, used to want to fight the crowd. I mean, you think if he didn't have the security guards and it was just him against the crowd, he'd win.
I think that security guard thing is kind of a situation where I think there was an incident where a fan shoved him, and we all spoke about it, and Paul basically said, "Look, I can calm it down if you want." I said, No, that's the thing. So that's fine. We'll just surround you with people. If anything, that makes it better. It's just about getting that right balance. But I mean, he's probably one of the best unsigned talents in the UK at the moment. And nobody knows what's going to happen when life goes back to normal, but it wouldn't surprise me if you saw him on the top of most cards in the UK.
Well, he's certainly getting on with progress now, isn't he? So, or he was before lockdown.
Yeah, no, absolutely. What him and Karen Wah, it was looking like 2020 was going to be the year of those guys. Wrestling's not going to go away. There's still next year now. We got this vaccine, so I'm sure that the likes of those guys and obviously the kind of talents we've mentioned before, there's opportunities out there. What wrestling's going to, and I'm just as excited as you guys to find out what's going to happen.
So, was there any wrestlers you wouldn't have back if you had a chance?
So I wouldn't have back. Well, I've got no bridges to burn now. So unlike with Grado, so probably wouldn't be looking to bring, mainly because he got drunk and.
Sorry, you broke up then, Dave. You missed that bit.
One of one of the. Sorry, which bit did you not hear?
We didn't hear you said. Basically, it all broke up then.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Oh, no.
Ooh. Oh, he's back.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, can you? There you go. Sorry about that.
So yeah, you broke up. We didn't hear any of
Dave,
that.
can you hear me?
You Blackpool.
Okay, right. So somebody I wouldn't have back would probably be Grado. Didn't have a particularly great night with him, mostly because he got really drunk, put his arm around one of the talents, was drinking, goes, Tin Pot promotion, I ain't got any clue what they're doing, put me on first, basically slagging us off. Turns out he was doing that to Nick.
Oops.
So I'm like, we didn't kick off about it, but it's just like, you know what, fine, it's fine, I get it. You think you're a bigger star than we are. I just think it's fine. So yeah, I didn't give that a second thought because there's no point in having arguments with it, and we'd make a big deal of it at the time. But I'm sure Grado's doing fine now. He's not going to care what I think about him. But yeah, it's fine. We were just more interested in working with people that wanted to work with us, and that was it really. You know, apart from imports, which generally speaking normally were like a one and done sort of scenario for us, most of the people that we use on a regular basis because A, we thought they were really valuable for what we did, and B, we got on with them. We always work on our happy locker room. If anybody did a shorter stint with us, it's probably because there was not an issue, but either that was the plan or there wasn't anything that causes disharmony in our locker room isn't what we want. So we'd rather, if the quality of the stuff in the ring or that night diminishes because we haven't booked somebody that's deemed to be, or we book someone or refuse to book somebody that we don't feel is going to help, but deemed to be a draw, we'd rather not have the draw. Because we'd rather the way that Chaos worked is the biggest draw was the brand for me in terms of everyone. It's a sum of all of its parts. No one person was more important than anyone else. And if we're in a situation where those individuals aren't happy, it's going to make for an unhappy locker room. And one of the things we were often told is that, and partly might be lip service, but they're saying that they enjoy working in our locker room more than most because everybody's of the same mindset and nobody's trying to politic each other because none of us would stand for that anyway. And they're treating as a team sport. They all know that, right, okay, this is the period where this guy's going to the moon, so let's all get behind that, because we know that then if we're sold out shows, anybody that's smart brings t-shirts because they can then sell those t-shirts to more people. So it's cyclical in that way. If everybody tries their hardest to get along and trying to put on the best show, everybody in theory can make more money.
And have there ever been any times before a show where you've just wanted to cancel it?
Oh yeah, loads. You know, so the last Yates show, first of all, I was in bits. I was in tears. Like any time somebody new came in, I started crying. I was like, I can't do this. But the other thing that went wrong is our computer failed on us 45 minutes before the show was due to start. So that computer had every single entrance music video on it.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so it was run. I don't have the laptop here, but I've got a laptop which is like 6 years old that had a backup, but I just backed it up because I was obsessed about IT because I work in IT. And our entire show was basically run on the laptop that did our first show that was riddled with viruses, shouldn't have worked. It should not have worked. I cannot stress how crap that laptop was. Like if you actually watch some of the videos that come up on the actual screen that night are so blocky in some bits because the processor just could not handle it. So we were sort of just there on tenterhooks going like at any moment this whole thing could just fall apart. But somehow it worked out all right. So yeah, that was a tough one. I'm trying to think. Not quit, but because I couldn't remember any of the show, we ended up by accident having the TNA World Heavyweight Champion and the Ring of Honor World Heavyweight Champion on the same show. Not through design. That was. So we booked Drew Galloway, and we booked Jay Lethal. Jay Lethal was the Ring of Honor champion. and Drew won the belt like 2 weeks before he was with us. So we were like, happy days, this is all right. And I'm setting up, and I'm on a ladder, and I'm setting up our entranceway, and health and safety was not good. And I basically fell off a ladder twice, and like concussed myself pretty bad, to the point when I don't remember any of the show. Like, I was there in spirit, but that was it. Like, I was away with the fairies. Like, I cannot remember any part of that show. I watched it back when I edited it, going, oh, this is really good. Oh yeah, this is good. Yeah, but you know, I mean, to give you an idea, was that, but I actually got a CAT scan the next day. So, you know, it was a pretty bad sort of concussion. Now, if I was with it at all, I would not want to have been there that day. And I'm sure that, you know, knowing what we know about concussions today that we didn't know then, I probably should have gone to the hospital there and then. But yeah, that was a pretty bad day at the office as well.
So you've mentioned Dick Riley as one of your favourite people to work with. Who are other favourite people you've worked with?
Okay, so I could go on for days with this. So in no particular order, I mean, I love Webster because he challenges us at all aspects of what we were doing. I loved Eddie Ryan just because when we pitched he didn't say no to anything, and we made him do some stupid things. But also he doesn't get enough credit for being a really good straight man.
Oh yeah.
So the way Crazy Teacups worked in terms of the absolute, like, you know, it's the sublime to the ridiculous, like that whole trio with Khan and Sterling worked brilliantly because of how each of those three characters played their roles so well. But with very little direction from us, we just basically said, be an oddball team, and off they went and did it. I love the Hunter brothers. Yeah. I cannot stress how much I love the Hunter brothers. And again, it was like stupid stuff. Like, we were telling them, like, you're the best tag team in Europe. So what we're going to do is we're going to pretend you've been a lion for the last 18 months. And they're like, yeah, sure, whatever. Yeah, off they go. Who else do I really like? I mean, obviously I love Grizz. Oh God, it's going to be too many to name, and I'm going to get it wrong. Like, I mean, I loved working with Ginny. Like, Ginny doesn't get enough credit for, especially some of her last matches with us. Like the extra training she was getting, and she's put on some of the best technical matches we've ever had that just doesn't get the credit. Plus, she's an absolute sweetheart, providing she hasn't got a live mic in front of a child.
Oh yeah.
You know what? I want to quit that night when she started f-bombing a child in the front row. Definitely want to quit that night. God, who else? You know what? James Drake. James Drake is like an absolute sweetheart, and I know it doesn't really help with his persona at the minute. But I mean, to give you an idea, so we knew we obviously wanted to use Drake for our last show on the Saturday, but because we were running such a small venue on that Sunday, like, we just couldn't afford him. And he was asking, like, have I got a spot on the Sunday? I was like, mate, it's absolutely nothing against you, but I wasn't even going to ask you because, to be frank, I can't afford you. And he's like, you've done so much for me, I'll do it for free.
Nice.
And for him to say that, and like, and you know, he said some lovely things for us on the night as well, but like, he really appreciated the fact that we're one of the few places that gave him a singles run, because he was always tagged up with Zach, and like, he always used to say he just wanted to get more reps in. He wants to get more chances to do things on the mic alone, to try to experiment with what he can do, and we gave him that platform to be able to do it. And like, yeah, and I can't thank him enough. Because
he's phenomenal, isn't it?
Yeah. God, I'm gonna forget people. Like, you know, even though we only used him twice, but I chat to him loads. Like Chris Hero, I love Chris Hero. We tried so hard to get that third Eddie Dennis match. I cannot stress. Like, when we found out he was going back to NXT, we tried to book Hannum on a Tuesday night with the idea that we were going to fly Hero over for one night, just to put on, and just, we were just like, we probably sell out Tuesday. Yeah, we probably sell out Tuesday. We could do this. Yeah, we'll sell out Tuesday. It'd be fine. But yeah, I mean. And, you know, to give you an idea on the kind of guy that Chris is, I was really lucky that I could. I was invited backstage to the NXT UK Cardiff tapings, going back about a year.
Yeah.
And just you know, no other reason than the guys from Progress invited me along because I had a good relationship and I was local. And as soon as I got there, I said hello to people, and Chris Hare was in the ring, saw me, hopped over, gave me a huge hug, asked how I was. Like, I hadn't seen him in years, but like that's the measure of the man. Like, in terms of, I spent a lot of time with him when he was here because I sorted out a tour for him, and yeah, I've got a lot of time for him. I just know I'm gonna miss people out. Obviously, love Alex Steele because he's one of my best mates. Nick and Rob, obviously, I get on with, so I like working with them. I'm struggling now, and I'm going to feel really bad for anyone listening to this that I've left out. Obviously, Wild Boar. Wild Boar to me is like the Undertaker of British wrestling. He's that cool mofo that like he's a locker room leader. He's, especially when he's at Dragon Pro, like he's the ultimate professional. And the way he trains those lads and girls, and the respect that he doesn't command but gets because he deserves it because of the kind of guy he is. So yeah, I mean, yeah, if I haven't mentioned anyone, I'm sorry. It's just I could spend the next 45 minutes going through everyone we've booked, and I'd probably be able to tell you a story about them.
Yeah.
But
going back to Boar, though, we love the Wild Boar Invitational matches.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
That was his idea.
Yeah.
And we were like, yeah, sure, go for it.
No,
problem
fantastic.
at all. The thing we had with Boar is that we tried to bring him back as a heel, and just nobody bought it. Like, they still cheer him. It's like, but again, it goes back to that whole sort of Taker thing. Like, I think he's earned that respect, and he's kind of got to that point where, like, I mean, he'd have to murder someone in the ring to get heel heat at that point with us, because like he's, you know, he's earned that he's carried that favor with the crowd now, that we knew that, okay, fine, let's just use it as an opportunity to build up some other guys at least. And then obviously that final night that you guys came to, we were able to use that angle with Danny Jones's losing story to turn it all around in that one night. So we used that one night again like a TV night. We set up a story at the start of the show, and we finished with him. So
yeah, but Boar's a lot like Eddie Ryan in that respect. You could never turn Eddie heel, really, could you? Because not successfully, because there's so many people that love it, not done in our part of the world. I said to Kirsty before that he could throw live kittens out of a car on the motorway. They still could cheer for him, wouldn't they?
You know, I'm not going to suggest that as a way to get heel heat, but that probably
no, it's best not to. All the RSPC people damn it.
Yeah, it's probably for the best if we didn't do that. But no, absolutely. There's certain guys that you have to try really hard. I mean, it's an interesting thing, because it used to be really difficult. It used to be a lot easier to be, in my view, with wrestling. It's easier to be hated than it is to be loved. It's easier to do despicable things and get people to hate you really quickly. Love is earned over a long period of time. Coming out one night saying, come on, make some noise, will get out a reaction. When you look at Eddie Ryan and you look at Grizz and you look at Dick Riley, like I say, like when their music hits, before they've done anything else, before they've even come out, you get a rock star reaction now. You hear people screaming for effectively local talent that they're not known anywhere else, but in Kings Oak or in Hannam or in Yate, in those places at those times, those guys, without doing anything else, because of the love that they've earned from the audience, are as over as they would be in any venue anywhere in the country.
It's like,
and that's because of that long-term arc, because of the investment that we put into it.
It's like Reach tried to turn Dick Riley heel last show we went to, and he sort of turned on Bino. I think he hit Bino with a chair, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
And as soon as he hit Bino with a chair, half the crowd was still cheering him.
Bino, I forgot Bino. God, I love that kid.
And she's
so I had a bet with Bino. I said to him, within 2 years you're gonna have a match at WWE, and he was like, no, I won't. And then we put a tenner on it. And that show I went to, he was wrestling for the WWE that night. He got absolutely killed by Imperium, but he still got in there. So there's a photo I've got with him that I haven't posted anywhere, which is me and him with a tenner shaking hands. I mean, it's a shame about a spray tan that night, but apart from that, you know, like, you know, I couldn't be happier for him. Like, he's somebody that's really grown with what we did, because when we were working with him, like, he wanted to drop the Bino thing like really quickly. I was like, you no, absolutely not. Like, half of what you do as a wrestler is your entrance, and that got him over. And I keep saying to him, like, I don't need really good wrestlers. I need people that are over. can wrestle great, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
But what I need is people that love or hate characters, because then they'll come back and watch them again. And if you watch probably Bino's first match compared to Bino's sort of last set of matches with us, like the thing against Haskins was amazing, but he grew better as a performer over those years. But he didn't change that entrance until he turned heel, because that's the thing that got him over. That's the people who got him warmed up, and that's the thing that I was really insistent about. We'll get rid of it at some point, but I need you to do this at the minute, because that is really the hook. That's the thing that is getting you over, and you'd be a madman to lose it.
That match he had with Brendan White at Dragon Pride, I don't know if you've seen it. When he won, that was a fantastic match.
I've not seen it. I've not seen it, but I no doubt.
If you get a chance, Dave, see it. It's brilliant.
Yeah,
I will do.
But yeah,
I know the promoter. I see if I can get a DVD.
Well, hopefully. But you've mentioned your good relation with Dragon Pro and Natty at CSF. Have you ever had any run-ins with some promoters from other parts of the country or around this way?
Yeah. I guess you're after dirt here, aren't you? Is that what you're trying to say?
Well, you know.
Run-ins. Well, no. I don't. Like I said, I don't care. I've got no bridges to burn. The irony is, I don't actually talk to Natty anymore. He's unfriended me on Facebook and everything.
Right.
But that's fine. It's fine. It's fine. I'm not that. I am bothered about it, but I'm not that bothered about it. It's just one of those things, you know. It was just when I stopped wrestling, you stop seeing the people. That's all it is. And you know, I also know that I'm a preachy son of a bitch online. So sometimes unfriending me is not the worst thing in the world. In terms of fallings out, I wouldn't say we've had any major fallings out. I mean, I've had mild disagreements. So, you know, I did have a disagreement with Big League going back to give you an idea. So it was one against, and this is a minor thing. So this is when Lewis was trying to sign people to like local Southwest contracts.
Right,
And I think they just somebody said, somebody asked him, does this include Bristol? And he said Bristol's in the Southwest, so yeah. And I didn't even give it a second thought. And then I got some messages from him like apologizing, saying like we should work an angle out of this and blah blah blah. And I was like, you know, I'm not interested in doing cross promotion angles. And like, but I'm like, if you want to do you do you. And I think he thinks that then like we had heat from it, and I generally didn't give it a second thought.
No.
But yeah, that's pretty much it. Who else don't I get along with? Let me think. We generally we haven't had a massive falling out with anyone, because the nature of what we have to do means that, especially when we were in the age when we were bringing over imports all the time, you have to get along with everyone because you have to do flight shares. I mean, the only time I can think of was when we were working with Pride on a Matt Riddle import run, and we said Matt Riddle's available on the Friday. Do you want him? He said yeah, and we were like, okay, great, you can have him on the Friday. And Saturday we'll sort the Sunday. And then we saw they booked him on like in Western Supermare, because they booked a venue there, and we sort of messaged him going, you didn't mention it was going to be in Western, because that's a bit close to Bristol. And then we had like a little falling out about that, and just saying like, can you either find a different venue or we'll find somewhere else for him to work. But only because it didn't make business sense to do it that way. I guess the only other one would be 4FW probably. So we know we don't get on with 4FW because we get screenshotted anytime Dave Sharp said anything nasty about us. And it's fine, whatever. I mean, I guess the main story that happened with that was and Cody Rhodes became available after he left DE before he signed anywhere else. We reached out to the agent that was looking after it, as I'm sure many other people did, and we'd arranged a date. We'd arranged a opponent, so it's going to be him versus Mark Andrews, because he was only interested in working people that he wanted to work. So we'd negotiated that. We'd negotiated the match. We had the graphic ready to go, and then we saw that Cody had actually posted like all the different places he was going to wrestle, and Bristol was on the map. And we're like, oh, great, okay, so what are you promoting? Fantastic. So I messaged the agent and said, thank you for that. And he said, yeah, actually, what's happened is 4FW have booked him, and they were talking to him at the same time and arranged the deal before us. And they basically said they're going to pull out if we use him. So as a result, we lost the Cody match, and then ironically, they also lost the Cody match because he was booked by Ring of Honor the same night that he was supposed to be used, because I think UPW had a deal within the same night, and then he came back to do a UPW show, but then couldn't work out their show. So yeah, just sort of minor little things like that. And also initially we were trying to be nice with them. We sent them all of our dates for a certain year to say, look, just so you know, these are the dates we're thinking of running. We're letting you know so you don't clash, because it doesn't help either of us if you clash. And he thanked us, and then he changed a couple of dates to clash with us after we sent them to him. So it's one of those things. And and I was like, you know what, it's fine. We still sold out our shows. I'm not that bothered about it. I was working on the basis of you should worry about what you're doing, not what other people are doing. Because if you focus your energy there, you're not focusing on you. So yeah, hopefully that's enough dirt for you, but that's about as far as it's gone. It's not been
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, we haven't called any we haven't called a sort of fire alarms in on any shows or anything like that, or anything juicy, I'm afraid. Sorry.
In the end, was it a tough decision for you to finish Chaos?
Yes and no. By the time you guys saw that video, I'd come to peace with it. By the time the three of us had posted that, we'd actually decided, I think, in the January of that year, or no, it was actually before. It was really frustrating because we decided pretty much out like a couple of months out or weeks after we put season tickets out on sale, which was stupid, really, because we sort of felt like, well, we're committed now. We have to do this next year because we got season tickets sold, but I can't remember what it was. I think we probably had a stupid argument about something stupid. Like it wasn't. I couldn't even remember what it was for, and it obviously wasn't that important. But I remember just waking up the next morning, doing the same thing, looking at my phone, checking for wrestling, and I just sort of stopped and thought and went, "What am I doing?" In terms of, I felt like year on year we had grown, but the last 2 years we hadn't, and I don't like doing the same things all the time. And I knew that with my family and my work life, which was getting busier, I wasn't able to give any more to Chaos than I already was. Chaos was never a big money maker. It made money, but it wasn't like I could quit my job to do it. As much as I would love to do that, it was never really an option. And I sort of said, like, do I want to still be waking up in a year's time looking at my phone and just trying to see if we can sell the same number of tickets? And because I know I can't get in the Colston Hall, I know that it's going to become trickier to get bigger name talent over because there aren't any imports left. I know a lot of my mates are getting signed by the WWE, so I'd have to rebuild again, and that's going to give me a lot of effort and headaches. And is there anything else I really need to do? I feel like I've achieved everything I needed to do. So I sent Nick and Rob a message, and I said, "Look, I'm just letting you guys know where my head's at. I'm thinking like I want to stop at the end of this year because I feel like we've done as much as we can." And they both replied saying they felt the same way. So we were in tune with it. And obviously I'm very stubborn. So once I've made a decision, that's it. So like as soon as I've done that, I'm like, okay, fine, I'm done, and I'm quitting. That's fine. But we didn't tell the soul for months.
No.
Sorry, carry on.
No. So I was going to say, so there was a takeover by Flash and Boar then. Was that sorted out early on, or was it late?
A lot later than people know. So so before that video came out, I think the day of, we messaged the roster to say, we're letting you guys know before this video goes out because we owe that to you, but we had to leave it as late as possible because wrestlers talk. So we knew that by the time that video went out, most people would have known anyway. I sent that message out. Within an hour, Flash had rang me and said, I want to buy the company. And I was like, mate, calm down. You don't know what you're saying. And I said, look, mate, chill out. And we had a long chat about, the reasons for doing it and X, Y, and Z. And he was like, yeah, but I want to buy the company. I'm like, you're just saying that right now because you're worried it's going. Just sit on it and think on it. And he did. And we didn't properly talk again about it until it was probably in November. We probably spoke about it. And like he said, yeah, I've been chatting to Boar, and we've been talking about how we could run things and stuff. And they were like properly talking about it at this point. And I was like, all right, okay. And like we'd spoken, me, Nick, and Rob, about if anybody ever wanted to buy it. And we had offers, but from people that I didn't feel would run things in the right way. and I felt very passionately that if it did get sold, it needs to be sold to the right people. And the fact is, we actually sold it for less than what we were offered from other people. But I knew that going to those two, they had been with us from the very early days. They understood the ethos of what we were doing, and I felt like, sure, their stories might change, who they use might change, but the soul of what we do wouldn't change. So I couldn't think of two better people to sell it to. But we didn't actually. I think it was in. So it was the week. So we actually probably did a proper like contract. We actually went through. We came up with a pro forma of everything involved with the sale. That was only signed, I think, the week before the show when we announced it. Yeah, then obviously we announced it on that night, and it was one of the most emotional nights of my life, because seeing the reaction to that was, I still got goosebumps now just thinking about it. But yeah, just seeing the reaction in that room when Flash said he wants to buy Pro Wrestling Chaos in front of everyone, it was a beautiful moment, and I can't wait for their first show a year after they've bought it. Yeah, it was yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen so many people crying in fans at one show as I did that night.
And that is weirdly the thing I'm really looking forward to. I'm looking forward to being that side of the curtain and experiencing that with everyone, because even though I know I was out there, I was so absorbed in that moment at the same time. So I'm like the most emotional guy anyway, like out of the three of us especially. So like, I remember when they were coming in, I had to look directly at the screen because I was already welling up because I knew what was about to happen. And like, if you look at the camera, Nick's pointing and laughing at me. He's going, "Look, he's gone already. Look at him. Look at him." And that's one of the reasons I couldn't talk on that last night in Yay. And like Nick and Rob did the talking, and like Eddie came out and did a wonderful speech, but I genuinely couldn't talk. I tried to do a speech to the boys backstage, or the roster backstage, like before we started. I couldn't. I just kept going to pieces. Like, and I'm just going off on a tangent about me crying all the time. But Flash and Paul running Chaos, it couldn't be in safer hands, genuinely. Those guys know how to run shows already. They know how our shows worked. They know how the shows will run in the future. So more power to them.
I think the fans were happy when we found out it was actually taking over. But are you going to turn the tables on Flash and just stand there going, "Why are you doing that? Why are you doing that?"
No, absolutely.
Why are you doing it this way?
Well, this is kind of my worry. So, like, obviously, the first show was meant to happen in April, and I was 50-50 about whether I was even going to go to that first show, because it's going to be like when Alex Ferguson left Man United, but it's up there in the director's box, just staring down. So if Chaos do anything differently, and everyone's going, "What's Dave going to think of that?" And that's the last thing they need. They don't need sort of old man Mercy in the corner just shaking his fist, going, "Shouldn't have done that back in my day." That isn't the way that I like wrestling.
Well, I don't know if Flash and Paul be quite happy to be compared to David Moyes, but there you go.
It's one of those where no matter what they do, it's going to be different, and you know what, that's totally fine. My flavor of wrestling is different from what maybe you guys like from wrestling, or anybody else listening to this likes from wrestling. All that matters is if there's enough there that you enjoy that makes you come back, you're onto a winner, and that's really what I would hope for those guys.
So since you've left wrestling or Chaos, you've taken it upon yourself. You seem to be like unofficial union rep for wrestlers, standing up for them if they're not getting paid by a promotion, and if promoters are running things the wrong way. Do you think you're going to continue doing that?
When things go back to normal, probably, purely because I genuinely feel like if I want to do it for ages, because I've known that there's loads of talent out there that still now haven't been paid by companies much bigger than me. And it's not right, because those companies are using the sway that they've got, knowing that they're bigger than that talent, not to pay them. Now, I can say hand on heart that we paid whatever people asked, and we paid it in advance, because that's the way we felt business should be done. If a talent has an issue with the promoter, they can't go public with it, because if they go public with it and other promoters see that could impact their future bookings. The delicacies around making yourself as marketable as possible means that you can't be seen to be negative when you're doing these things. So for me, I've got no bridges to burn. Like, I'm done with wrestling. I still love it. I'll still chat to people like yourself for hours on end about it. But I know that if I start calling out promotions or individuals for not acting properly, it's not going to affect my ticket sales anymore. It's not going to give me a bad name with other promoters. But it will mean that people that I know and even people that I don't know that deserve to be paid will get paid, because a lot of people don't make a lot of money doing this. Sometimes we're not talking about thousands of pounds here. We're talking about like 20, 30 quid notes sometimes. You know, starting out as a wrestler isn't a lot of money, but it's enough to at least cover your costs and like cover your training.
And the good thing with you is, Dave,
if I can,
sorry, carry on. Sorry,
carry on. No.
I was going to say, the good thing with you is you're well respected in the business, and everybody looks up to you, basically. You know, so you've got a bit of sway there, haven't you?
I wouldn't. Well, I mean, this goes down to, if people know me, great. If they don't, they don't. I'm not working. I'd like to think that at least I've got relationships with all these promotions. So when I can contact the promoter, I can talk to them from promoter to a promoter level and say, right, I've been, and I'll approach it fairly without emotion to say, right, person A has told me they've not been paid for you for this date that they've done on this date. What's your response? A, I paid them. B, I haven't paid them that I will, or C, stop talking to me. If it's option C, we go further. But
is that what we see it on social media, is it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I don't want to do that, but at the same time, I don't care if I do that. It makes no difference to me at all. Like, I really don't care. I can't stress that enough. Like, I'm pushing 40. I've got a family here. If I can just put out a quick tweet, someone's going to get paid. Happy days. Like, I don't care anymore. I'm too old and grumpy now to worry about all of this. So
wait till she gets my age, then, pal.
But it's one of those where if I can do it that way, the talent doesn't get outed, but the promotion does. It's done in a way that hopefully people will see the consequences of those actions and it will stop it. And I do hope that. And I've said that I'm not going to do anything during COVID because it's not fair, because no one's got any money. Promotions don't have money at the minute. But it's clean slate. As soon as things come back to life, as soon as any promoter starts now, I'm going to be back on that. And, you know, if anybody's not getting paid, I want to be the first to know. And I will stand up for anyone's rights. And the thing is, even when it's been bigger amounts, I've given people advice about small claims courts and other things that they can do, which I can't do for them, but I can at least give them all the tools to make sure that they've got the best chance of getting their money back. Because there's not a lot of money in British wrestling. You can probably count on a couple of hands, like, people aren't talented, but they'll say promoters that make money. There's probably on one hand you could say, like, they make decent money. Me personally, I've made enough for beer money to walk around and lose change in my back pocket, and I'm cool with that. A lot of other promotions make a hell of a lot more than that and are choosing not to pay their people because they want to increase their profits, and that's not right. Business, treat it like a business, and then pay your employees. That's really what I'm expecting. So yeah, I will carry on. I will continue to fall out with promoters, and I will still not care.
And I mean, from a fan's point of view, we want to see the people we wrestle, or the people we watch wrestling. We want to see them play. I think if we vote with our feet and start boycotting these firms that don't pay their fees properly, then that's a good thing.
And that's exactly it. So, I'm not going to tell you where to go or where not to go, but you will know based on the information that's out there what those companies' ethics are, and then it's obviously up to you guys to do what you want to do. I'm not trying to put anyone out of business.
No,
I'm just trying to make sure people get their fair share.
Yeah.
And in light of the speaking out revelations that surfaced earlier in the year, what do you feel needs to be done to get British wrestling back on track so everyone can be satisfied that they're seeing a reputable production?
It's going to be a really tricky one. I think things have the APPG stuff, the fact that wrestling's getting mentioned in Parliament is mind-blowing to me. That's something I've wanted for years. I firmly believe that governance and control are needed because we are so unregulated. And we and other companies have put policies and procedures in place off our own back because we thought it's the right thing to do for the way that we were running shows, not because we were told to. And obviously we're talking about starting with speaking out, and as a middle-aged white guy, I shouldn't be talking or saying anything about how being a young woman and getting abused in this industry is obviously abhorrent. But I'm by no means the right person to be speaking with about this, because I've got no experience with that. But there are other things that we've done as a company in terms of silly little things like ensuring that everyone's hotels are sorted and they're not staying at someone's house, unless they're okay with that, of course. Paramedics at shows, ensuring you got the proper insurances. I feel like the speaking out movement has started a conversation with the government that can hopefully get to a point where we've got a governing board or some sort of control that everyone recognises this is the minimum standard. But I think it needs to go further than safeguarding. I think safeguarding is absolutely the #1 priority across schools and across the shows. And however that gets implemented, I will be supportive of that, because I completely agree that needs to happen to give you guys as fans assurances that you're paying to watch shows that are being run in the right way. Because the fact is, you don't know. You don't know how my back end processes work compared to another show 10 miles down the road. You're just making educated guesses based on the product that you see and then what you hear. If there was a code of conduct that could be signed up to, or a governing body or something, I don't know what the solution is, but some sort of rubber stamp you can put on a poster, so that they are part of this union, and that if they don't follow those practices, that they're going to be shut down, or something like that. At least something like that gives you guys the level of understanding that you might want. But the problem is, what I've said there is going to be completely different to the next person you ask about what should change in British wrestling. My view, everyone's got a different opinion on this, and the people that need to control this need to not be involved in wrestling in any way, shape, or form, because this industry is so entwined with each other that no individual is above being perceived to be corrupt or having an agenda with it. Say, for example, I was in charge of a governing body. Straight away, because I've told you that story about 4FW, they're going to think I've got it in for them. Because I don't talk to so straight away. And the thing is, like, I generally think I'm bulletproof at the minute. Like, there's no flies on me. Something would have come out by now. There's nothing I've done wrong, I promise. But even me, and you said that I'm, if you think I'm respected, thank you. But I could point my finger at lots of other people I think should be involved, but I also know that they've got people that would say shit about them. There's nobody that's above this whole thing. So we actually need somebody who's not part of any of this, who's got experience of running governing boards or controls and processes and putting things in place to tell us and instruct us how our industry should be run. That's what we need, in my view. We don't need people inside saying this is what's wrong, this is how to fix it, because it hasn't happened till now, so it's not going to happen if we keep carrying on arguing. Let a third party sort it for us. And if people don't want to buy to that, bugger off. If they do, great, and then come enjoy the shows.
I know, as a fan, I've felt sick at some of my favourites, like David Starr, for example, being outed. And but as a promoter, how did you feel when you heard all the allegations coming out about all these wrestlers and some of the, because you probably signed some of them, like David Starr?
It's been rough, but I deserve no sympathy. Like, obviously, people that I had pretty good relationships with, that I thought were friends, that you find out have done things which are obviously horrible. And it's that difficult thing where, like, publicly you're not going to say anything. Privately, you'll have conversations with friends about it to try to get over it. But I don't deserve any sympathy for that, because I'm not the one that's directly affected by this. If I'm selfishly, the thing that frustrates me the most is that I had 6.5 years worth of shows, music videos, catalogs that I've put my heart and soul into, and I can't watch some of that stuff back now because of the individuals that are in it. And that's hurtful for me. But like I said, I'm like the last in the queue. You know, as far as sympathy goes, like it's affected me in terms of like, okay, I feel shit, but I feel much worse for anyone that's been affected by it. You know, it's not because of that. And you know, I know we were joking about it earlier, but you know, I couldn't have sold it at a better time, because if I was still running a show right now and like thinking, I mean, I couldn't even imagine the additional stuff I'd have to process right now. I think it's good that Flash and Paul can start with a clean slate, but at the same time, whilst we're talking about this, I do feel there's economy of scale with some of this, where I feel like this is going to sound, there's no easy way for me to try to express how I'm feeling with this, but in terms of you've got some ends of the spectrum where people have done absolutely horrible things and rightfully should no longer be involved in wrestling. But then I've seen people that have been deemed as just as guilty using this hashtag for doing things that, or not even doing direct things, but saying things, or just being caught like with a screenshot or a video or something along those lines, but not actually have done anything directly impacting somebody, but getting the same crime associated with them and therefore are done with wrestling. And I'm not saying I know how to fix that, but it feels like anybody that's been associated with the speaking out movement is effectively their career's done. And I'm not saying that it's wrong that any of these people should be put through the mill with this, but it feels like to me it's been trialed by social media for anybody that's been branded with that speaking out tag. And as a result of that, there's people that are at the other end of the spectrum that have effectively lost either their hobby or their livelihood. Where when we're and this happened a couple of years ago for other things, where people that effectively and you know have been called out as either grooming or being effectively rapists are being called out in the same conversation of people that have been caught saying a thing on a video once. And everybody's in the same pot. I'm not saying that they're not both guilty, but it feels like there's economies of scale here. So, and I'm not saying that and I'm not against speaking out at all. I just think that this is sometimes the dark side of social media, where there is that dog pile element of it. And as soon as, and you guys saw it when it was happening, there was a good sort of 4 or 5 week period where it was like, oh God, what's happened today?
Yeah.
Like something else has come out in the speaking out movement. Something else has come out in the speaking out movement. And it's all valid. It's just, I think the punishment doesn't necessarily fit the crime with everybody. And I'm not saying I know how to fix that, but I'm saying a governing body might. Because I think that there's penance to pay, but I don't believe but everybody seems to have got the same punishment as a result.
So would you say that wrestling Twitter is a force for good or a force for negativity, or in between somewhere?
Wrestling Twitter is the best and worst thing to happen to wrestling. When it's good, it's great. When it's bad, it's awful. Absolutely awful. And you know, I've had both ends of that. I think most people have, and we all feel safe when we're using our phone and we can give an opinion, and that opinion to that one person alone might mean nothing, but when there's hundreds of those opinions, that's where the dogpiling kicks in. And nobody really looks at that one. It's only when it happens to you, you see the impact of it. So it can be good. Right now, it's there's obviously been dogpiling with the speaking out movement, and it started with negativity, but I truly believe that it will eventually breed positivity at the end of it. But at the same time, it's a necessary evil. I mean, the amount of people I've seen that said, I'm only on Twitter because I need it for my career. And the fact is they do, because it's a great marketing tool. But it's also one of those things where, like, I've run seminars with people about how to run their social media accounts, because the thing with social media is, and this goes back to the love and the hate thing, it takes you days, weeks, years to build up that audience and that love and that reputation, and one thing to fuck it up. Oh, sorry, cock it up. I don't know if I can swear on this.
Yeah, swear as much as you like.
Good. And everyone's on tenterhooks. Like, I don't believe you see anyone's true versions of themselves online, because it's a popularity contest, and I'm just as guilty. Less guilty now because I don't care as much as I used to. But even now, I'm not always posting everything I truly feel because I know that that might result in differing opinions. And the thing is, anytime anybody posts an opinion, you know someone's going to disagree with you. So you know that tomorrow you're going to be the most unpopular you've ever been online because that person that disagreed with you yesterday still hates you today, but now you've disagreed with someone else.
Yeah.
And that's just the nature of it. But as soon as anybody starts posting any sort of opinion, you're going to divide people. And I put a tweet out earlier talking about how much I love the AEW show. I'm sure people that hate AEW now hate me because I posted an opinion on it.
Yeah.
But that's the nature of it. It's that thing of if you glue together a broken plate, you still see the cracks, and people always remember that. So I try to take it with a pinch of salt now, but it, when I was running it as Chaos, it was like walking on eggshells every single day. It really was. And I've cocked up online before, and I think after that Chaos Father show, I put and like loads of people giving us crap for or I had a graphic made for us that was a Marmite jar that said Chaos on it.
Right,
I just posted that like it's a tongue-in-cheek joke.
Yeah,
tongue-in-cheek joke. The amount of people that gave me shit for that go, what, are you trying to say that opinions don't matter now? And like, I'm not. I'm just trying to have a laugh.
Yeah,
it's not real life. Yeah. It's just like you either love or you hate us. That's literally what I was trying to say. Like, we're getting hate. Lols. Here's a Marmite picture. No, we got absolutely hammered for it.
Oh, no.
Like the worst one was when. So the worst one we had was when we announced that we were doing we were the first company in the UK to have a proper code of conduct for disabled fans. Like so we're firm believers in that. So we were doing say free tickets for carers. We posted loads of information about all of our venues, how ticket structure prices would work. We posted that online, and that included things such as and this is standard regulatory guidelines about if you're asking for, if you want a disabled ticket, we need either like a PIP or some sort of blue badge or evidence of it. Because to be honest, people were taking the mick. There were people that were saying that they were disabled, but they were not. And we didn't think that was fair because we only had a limited number of disabled tickets. We posted that online and we got a torrent of abuse for trying to suggest that people needed to prove they were disabled, because that is the line that the negative elements of Twitter towed, which was not the case. And thankfully, some other people that helped build that came to defend us with that. But that's the nature of it, because people will take if there's a take on something and you're friends with that person who takes that take, you'll support that person. And then within the space of about an hour, before I knew it, I was getting like hate messages on DMs saying like, how dare you ask people like just to prove they're disabled? Like, that's not what we're doing. It's really not. Like, please read what we've put together. We put together a 10-page document explaining all of this in detail. We're doing this to try to make sure that people that are genuinely disabled are getting the correct number of tickets that we can offer them to ensure that that they can get in, and with carers at no extra cost. We're trying to do the right thing, but yeah, just that was probably one of the worst examples I can think of. So yeah, Twitter, the best and worst of us.
Yeah. Remind me of that sketch in Alf Garnett when he's in a wheelchair at West Ham and he jumps up when West Ham score.
Yeah.
So lastly, what advice would you give to any aspiring promoters out there?
Don't. I would say so if you have got your heart set on being a promoter, number one, make sure you've got enough money. Okay, if you don't have enough money to pay people by the time you open the doors, do not run a wrestling show. Okay, mainly because I will come after you, because I will, because I'm on Twitter now and I'll do that. Don't run a tournament on your first night. Nobody cares about you yet. Give them a reason to care about you. What else? For God's sake, get insurance, get a paramedic. Again, if you can't afford all this, don't run. Wrestling on the cheap doesn't work. Invest in your product and people will invest in you. These are more salient points than I was expecting. What else would I say? Look around your area. Okay, if you're going to run somewhere, ask yourself, is there really a market for this? If you're running somewhere where there's already 5 promotions on your doorstep, do you really need to run a promotion? My final thing would be, just because you think you know how to run wrestling, make sure you know how to run wrestling. So if you've never been on the other side of that curtain, if you've never been involved in training, if you've never set foot in a ring, and that doesn't mean wrestling, if you haven't been a referee or an MC or been a light tech or any part of wrestling, you shouldn't be a promoter yet. I know how to drive a car. I shouldn't run a garage. I like to drink coffee. I shouldn't run a coffee shop. I have been involved in wrestling for 12 years before I started my first show, because I thought I got to the point where I knew as much as I could. And on my first day, I realized I knew sod all. And I still now know as much as I know. But if I was to work with another promoter who's been much bigger, much more successful, they're going to know shed loads more than I do. You learn with experience, and you only get that experience by actually getting on the ground and seeing how it works. So don't run it cold. Really, truly understand this industry, because it's not just a case of putting a ring in a hall, putting out a Facebook post and booking 12 of your favorite wrestlers. There's a hell of a lot more to it than that, and people need to learn that.
I think a lot of fans don't realise what's involved in promoting, do they? Really, that's the thing.
Yeah, it's my favorite part of the night is those 10 minutes after a show. Like when I can hear how happy you guys are. That's like the most happy I am each month.
Yeah.
And then you forget about the 60 odd hours you put in to get to that point. There's so much effort, and no matter how hard you think you're going to have to work, you have to work harder. Like every day, push. You have to push every single minute of every day. And if you're not prepared to do that, don't bother.
Right. We said that was the last question, but I've got one more question for you, Dave. Just one quick one. You say you love Dick Riley, but who loves him more?
Yep.
You or your good lady wife?
There are a couple of videos where she's looking at, and that's the main reason we stopped wrestling, so I could keep my marriage together. Because that is the problem, where your job is effectively employing lots of men wearing not a lot of clothes that are much fitter than you in a ring. So yeah, it was needed, really. I had to shut it down, otherwise we'd only see my kids on the weekends. So no, she loves Dick just as much as I do, but I get to see him more now.
Yeah. On a personal note, though, Dave, as well. Since we've been doing this, you've been giving us so much support and encouragement and help. Just want to thank you for that, mate, and we'll always appreciate that.
No problem. Honestly, guys, like I say I'm a positive person. I believe negativity breeds negativity, but positivity breeds positivity. And you guys have always been really positive about the scene, even when you haven't liked things. You've done it in a positive way, and I really do respect and enjoy that. And you're not just being positive for the sake of it. It is genuinely helping the scene. So no, it's been a pleasure. Thank you guys, and more power to you. And I hope you keep doing this podcast for years to come.
Oh, fingers crossed we will. Thank you, Dave. We appreciate all your time tonight.
Thanks so much.